So hi, welcome to Noise Podcast. I'm Shane.
I'm Glory.
And we're here with.
And I'm Harold from Koyo.
And we're asking some questions to say about their new album, Would You Miss It? So congrats on that, by the way. How do you feel about the response to it so far?
Thank you very much. I feel great about the response, honestly. I really got to say it exceeded all of our expectations in terms of, the public opinion of it. We weren't really expecting it to be as well received as it was. I don't know if that was just us being, pessimistic or whatever, but it was really, really well received. We're all super flattered and grateful for the love we've gotten on it.
Yeah, hell yeah, the album rocks.
Yeah.
And I feel obviously you guys have put out stuff in the past, but like a debut record, it's like hard to have like expectations. Even if you've had previous releases, you're like, well, we don't really know what's going to happen because a band could blow up or it could just like do nothing. So
Yeah, for sure. Well, I seriously appreciate the kind words about it. That was one of the things that we talked about was we were like, it's everybody remembers their favorite band's first record.
Yeah.
It's like not to say that we were anybody's favorite band or that we are, because that would be insane. But we were just like, we always thought about that. We were like, our first record is there's pressure there. It's like if you don't if it doesn't go well, that's kind of it. But we're really, really grateful.
Hell yeah.
Mm-hmm. Hell yeah. So is there any meaning behind the album title or cover art?
Yeah, so the title itself was pulled from a lyric from the song Crushed. And I think that the reason, so Joey, our singer, picked the title, and he he gave us a list of like potential titles, and that was the one that like stuck out, I think, to everybody. I loved the idea that it was a question, for a few reasons, because it's like, but I mean, the first one I could think of was I love Oasis. So what's the story? Morning Glory. I was like, a question mark on an album is really cool. But also it was like, it's a cool lyric from a song that I think exemplifies a lot of the lyrical content of the record. I think that Crushed as a song, like the final song of the record, won't like, I think exemplifies the record like as a whole, because it's short, it's quick, it's aggressive, it's to the point. It has all of like the Koyo isms that we like love and like cling to, the back and forth vocals, the harmonies, like it's got that halftime chorus. Like it's so many of like our pillars, in that one little 2-minute song. And that was like really important to us. And I thought the fact that it came from that song, which is lyrically exemplary of the record, and musically, I was like, that's perfect. I think it summarizes what the record is about. As far as the artwork was like, so I handle like the visuals for the band. So I feel equipped to speak on this. But it was one of those things where the artwork kind of, it took on a meaning as we were sort of unrolling it. So and kind of what I mean by that is like the artwork was a joint effort between myself and Rebecca Later, who's the best photographer in the world, and Ridge Ryan, who is the best graphic designer in the world, and Mike Dubin, who's one of the other greatest photographers in the world. They're all very close friends of mine, and it was a big collaborative effort where we all sort of like Becca. We had this idea, right? And I had these ideas to have a human subject in the album art, and like because it kind of was like, it sort of gives that pastiche element of like the records that we grew up on. There was always like a person on the cover and what they, you know what I mean? Like there was we started to think about, well, what is the person doing? And Becca was incredible. She went out and she had a friend of hers model for us, and she did an amazing job. And they rented a house, and from another friend of hers who was, we're super grateful for them letting us use the house. And Becca basically directed this shoot, and she had come up with the creative direction for it. And she had all these ideas that I thought were so cool. They were just like perfect. And she sent us like 100 or more photos, and they were all like different, like ideas. And I know that Becca likes to work with mirrors and glass. Like that's she's done a lot of promos for us, and that's like the lane that she tries with us a lot, and I love it, and I think it's really cool. And with the album art in particular, but it's funny because I have it up on the other monitor right now. I was working on something, so I'm looking at it while I'm
Yeah.
talking about it. But the album art was the reason this photo was the one we chose. I'm sorry, I'm so long-winded with
Oh, you're
everything.
No,
good.
you're
It's a
good.
podcast.
Was that the so there are a bunch of lyrics on the record that are the most straightforward is in Message Like a Bomb, the song with Daryl Palumbo. There's a lyric, behind the glass, I want you by your neck.
Mm.
And I thought that that concept of behind the glass was like a very cool idea to explore. When I saw, like, Becca had a few photos of her friend Annalie behind like a glass of water that was sort of like distorting and refracting her face. And I thought that was really interesting because, there's a lot of songs on the record that are about the distance between Joey and the singer, the subject, and between like friends and family. And like it was I thought it was a cool like metaphor. Not that I thought the album art had to be literal, but I wanted the art to be accessible. I believe across all of our designs, across design that I work on, period, that everything should be accessible. It should be something that you look at and you just like enjoy, and you don't have to dive in. You don't have
Yeah.
to know every little detail. You can just like it because it looks cool. And like,
Yeah.
and that's just as valid as like a total nerd like me going in and dissecting every little piece of it. And it was like I the like for me though, that picture symbolizes that sort of distance, that sort of like space between the subject, like the person speaking, like Joey, and the people he's talking about. There is this
Yeah.
like there is this gap, there is this space, there's something between them that's like refracting him and his like life and his, a lot of it is about like like misconceptions about him and stuff too. And I thought that was a really cool symbol of that. And I loved that, what better accessibility than to have a person whose face is there, who, like, when you look at, you don't have to, you identify with a human's face so much. When you look at it, you can tell emotion, you can tell, you know what I mean? So
Mhm.
that's sort of the thinking that I had behind using that photo in particular.
Whoa.
Yeah.
I fucking love that. It's usually this question is such a short answer. Like they usually it's just kind of like, we like this picture, so we picked it, or sometimes they go a little bit in depth. But just hearing how much thought, effort, time, care, love went into just the cover art is fucking incredible. And I love that you were able to kind of nerd out on it, as you said, and
Thank you.
just enjoy the process. And thank you for sharing all of that with us,
Yeah, of
genuinely.
course, of
Mhm.
course. No, I'm happy to.
Hell yeah. So can you tell us a little bit about your writing process for the album?
Yeah, for sure. So the writing process for Would You Miss It was like pretty long. We had written a couple of those songs before before we had even put out our second EP, Drives Out East. Like we had written those songs like those ideas were kind of planted, and we always sort of like we would take songs and we'd hear them, and we would just be like, that's an LP song. And that was the it was sort of this like thing that we never thought was going to happen. We were like, a hypothetical LP, like that was before Pure Noise had signed us. We were like, oh, if we ever do an LP one day, let's save that.
Yeah.
And we had stacked up a handful of songs, but the writing process generally would be either TJ, our other guitar player, or I will come up with like, or Joey. Like there's a few songs on the record that were Joey's like skeletons. Will come to the band with a skeleton, we call it, and it's like, like a chord progression, a really cool riff or something, and then we bounce the idea off each other at my house or whatever, at somebody's house. Like we'll go over and just sort of like chop it up and like we'll play it for each other or whatever, and then we'll send like a demo of it to whoever wasn't able to come to the like writing day. and they'll get to give their opinion on it, and we'll just sort of like feel it out. And Sal, our drummer, will add his flavor to it, and Spanos, our bass player, he'll do the same. Like it turns into everybody's able to like contribute to it.
Yeah.
But generally the skeletons are written by one of the three of us, and we'll bring it to the band, and we'll just kind of see where it goes. For Would You Miss It, I was like really nervous about being unprepared for the record. Like I had spoken to a bunch of friends of ours and about like their debut albums, their records or whatever, and I was just like, I got so in my head about I didn't think we were ready. I didn't think I was like I felt so unprepared. And like I spoke to, for instance, like our friends in Regulate, our friends in Anxious and Soul Blind, and all of them said the same thing. They were like, oh, our LP was written before we got there. Our LP was done. It was completely done. We knew what songs were going to go into what, like, and we didn't have that. We didn't have that sort of like, everything wasn't ready yet, it felt like. But we found out later that that's just like, that was just an insecurity. And it was like, everything was fine. We showed up and we had like 25 ideas. But I had a pretty bad leg injury on tour with Knocked Loose when we were in April of 2022. And I required like a huge surgery to rebuild my ankle, and I was in a wheelchair for like 12 weeks. And I lived in a third floor walk up at the time, so when I got in, I had to stay. I couldn't get down. I was in a wheelchair for like rotting in my apartment for a long time. And then I went to the studio like that, and I learned how to walk at a physical therapist near the studio. But I wrote 3 of the songs that made the record from the wheelchair, like literally sitting in my living room in my wheelchair, just like rotting. I had nothing. I couldn't do anything. I was just so stuck. And that sort of like pressure and like, not I can't really put it into any other word, but like depression sparked. I wrote Crush, the instrumental to Crushed, I Might Not, and Sayonara Motel from my wheelchair, like, which I thought it was really cool that those made the record, you know?
Yeah. Wow. So when you wrote those, was full length even in your brain? Were you even writing for an album that time? Or was it just kind of like, I'm not doing anything, so I might as well just do this?
It was kind of a mixture of both. Like the LP was in our brain because we had the recording time booked. Like I knew we were going away. We started the LP on July 7th of 2022. So I was in a wheelchair starting April 22nd, I think. So it was, and I didn't learn to walk until like July 20, in the July 20s. Like I started walking because when we played Sound and Fury, that was the late July. I was still like, I remember like I had like a big immobilizer on my leg. But to get back to your question, we were booked for the studio space at that time. So I was in the wheelchair, like knowing in a few weeks I'm gonna have to get back downstairs and drive myself to New Jersey and stay there for, I think we were there for 5 weeks, 6 weeks total to do the LP. And when we got there, we did a full week of pre-production with our producer John Markson, and he helped us like bring those ideas that we weren't really confident on, like he's helped us sort of figure out like that these will work. It was him and our friend Mike Dubin were there, helped us like sequence the record and figure it out. And so those songs came from sort of like an urgency almost. It was like I have nothing else to do, and I'm about to go to the studio, and I'm all insecure about the record. I'm just gonna play until I can't. I'm gonna play it every day, like in my living room, and just a couple cool songs came out of it, I think.
Gotcha. We've been talking a lot about like the insecurity and the pressure that you guys had on yourself going into this record. How were you guys able to kind of overcome that, both like in the writing process, recording, for the record?
I think it turned into like I think that insecurity turned into like a confidence when we were really thrown into the studio, because it was like Joey and Spanos and our singer, our bass player and I we've been in bands together since we were 12 years old. So like we grew up together, and like Sal and TJ, I've known them since I was like 14. And this is all we've ever done, is play in bands and stuff. And this was the biggest opportunity and experience we had ever had. And we were all nervous about it. There's that sort of like, I don't want to call it this, but I guess the only term I can think of for it is like imposter syndrome, where it was just like we're about to go. How many kids dream about living on a farm to record a record? Like living with your friend. Like we used to watch all those documentaries of bands that we listened to growing up, like as kids. Like, oh, they went and they lived at this studio, and like here's our chance to do that and make something that will live on past us, And I think we were all a little insecure about it. And then we got in there and we were just like, over a decade of doing this shit nonstop. Like this is what we were made for. This is why we're here. This is why I was put on this earth, was to make stuff, not to be all like weird about it, but it's the truth. We sort of just felt like, oh, we're in the zone. Like you hit that like flow state, and you're just like, everything's just moving the way it should. John Markson is an incredible producer who really has a way of drawing the best performances out of everybody, and in a way of like giving you that confidence that I think you need. He's really, really good at drawing that out of the artists that he works with. And I think that across the board, you can hear that in the records he's done other than us. Like he just did the New Story So Far record, and he did like Drug Church LP, and he did that Soul Blind EP that's incredible. He does a lot of stuff, and all of it comes out spectacular, and it was that, and it was also just like we had a lot of it was the first time we were like all living on top of each other nonstop, where it was like we weren't on tour. So we were able to, like talk as friends, and like sort of just like it feels dumb to say, because like when you're on tour, I guess you would assume it's this way, but like it gave us time as friends to just like catch up, to just like talk about stuff that was on our mind. It gave us time to like really like hang out, and like that was a calming and grounding experience, I think, for all of us, to be able to, like level the playing field with each other and just sort of hang out. And it felt like we were getting to know each other more, even though I've known these guys are my best friends for over a decade, all of them. So it was really, really cool. It was we all felt super comfortable there. And when it was over, it sort of felt like, it felt like you were graduating high school or something, and you were just like, I'm gonna miss some people, I'm gonna miss this every day, it's weird. But it was great. It was amazing.
That's great.
I'm so happy to hear that.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So what song off this album took longest to write, and which one is your personal favorite?
I think the song that took longest to write was probably You're on the List, because You're on the List -1 or Message Like a Bomb, which were both skeletons that TJ had contributed. And Message Like a Bomb was the song I wanted to be the most hands-off on, because I tend to be very like involved, and I tend to be like I don't know. We're all involved in everything, but like I'm always the one where it's like, okay, my phone is off. This is what I'm doing right now when we're recording. It's like, this is where I am right now, and my voice is I'm yelling over John the whole time. It's a very intense process, but with Message Like a Bomb, I was like, I just want to contribute the guitar leads. I was like, anything else I don't really want to, like, I want this song to be so different, because I wasn't even that I wanted it to be. It was just like TJ had an idea for the song, and I didn't want to get in the way of it at all. So when they would work on that song, I would take my crutches and go downstairs, and I would just sit in the living room and just sort of like wind down and do something else for a little while. Whereas You're on the List, we had written like a completely different version of that song. It was a different tempo. It had a different chorus, and it had a different outro.
Mhm.
And the outro was like very long, and it didn't feel like it belonged on the record at the state it was back then. But we had saved it for an LP song. Like that song we wrote like pre 10 digits away, and that idea was there. Um, but I think my favorite song on the record is probably, that's such a good question. I want to say it's probably Crushed, but I think because of what I was blabbering on about earlier about how it's like, it feels like the reason I want to say Crushed is because so many songs, there's so many bands write this outro for their record. Their last song is like this big deal.
Mhm.
It's like the outro has to be this cinematic, like super crazy thing.
Yeah.
And I was like, yo, the vibe for this record is pedal to the floor, like
Mm-hmm.
intense. Like I don't want to do that. I don't want it. Maybe it'll suit us for another record.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was like, but that's not really our vibe. I don't think it's ever really worked for us. Like we've had the slower, softer songs. We've had the more anthemic, like cinematic, dramatic songs, and like they weren't really for us. They weren't really like they didn't feel like us, And with Crushed, it was like the song came together super quickly, super naturally. Everybody liked it, like when I sent the idea over, and it felt like this could be an intro. We could throw this song in the middle of the record. Like, why not? Why save like a boring song? Why put a boring song at the end of the record?
Yeah.
Why not put like when we sequenced that record, Jake, the owner of Pure Noise, Jake Round, hit me up and he was like, "Yo, just listen to the record. It's phenomenal. I love it." He was super nice about it, and he goes,
Yeah.
"But I have an idea. Can we put the last song in the beginning of the record?" And I was like, "No." I was like, "No." And he was
No.
like, "Dude, I think you should." And I explained to him the idea, and but the label was super supportive and cool about everything. But that was everybody's sort of idea was why is this why is it the last song on the record? And that was when I was like, well, what if we made it a music video the day of the record drops so that people hear it? Because I know the idea is like nobody's gonna listen to the last song on the record. People are gonna get bored.
Yeah.
It's like, no, if the whole record is like full throttle, like there's the whole record has energy and feels urgent, like people will get there and they'll be like, I just want to listen to it again.
Mhm.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Like that was sort of the idea. I was like, that song goes right into so that song actually literally goes right into the opener of the record. They have the same hum
Yeah.
That's great.
starts the record. I took that idea from Transatlanticism by Death Cab for Cutie. It ends and starts on the same note.
Yeah.
I want to do that. That way you can listen to it as kind of an infinite loop, just a nerdy little thing.
Yeah.
No, I fucking love when bands and albums do that slight little transition. Some of my favorite albums have that, and it's just the cherry on top. It's fucking
I thought it was a cool idea, and everybody was down with it. I was like, yo, that way, like if you're listening to the record, like on your phone or whatever, and it wants to repeat, it sounds like the sequence is continuing. It doesn't sound like you're at the beginning of the record. It's like it's not this big dramatic end, it's not the curtain closing.
Yeah.
It's the record's still moving, it's still alive.
Yeah. And when you finally get back to that first track again, you're like, I might as well listen to it again. I'm already here. Yeah.
Hopefully that's how people think of it, and not, wow, this was so boring.
No.
So how did the track list for the album come about? Did you guys write the opener to be the opener, close to be a closer, shuffle around and see what fits? What was that process like?
I think that like some songs naturally feel like, oh, this is a track 4. This is a track 6. Or like that's we'll all talk about that, and like Joey will say like, oh, this sounds like it's on the B side, and we all just would be like, yeah, no, you're right, that does sound like it should be on the B side. And There was one particular part of the sequence that we were lost on. So I knew like we kind of had the idea for a few songs, but we weren't dead set on anything. I think the building points of the record where we knew that What's Left to Say was going to be on the B side. It was going to be like the reviver track. It was going to be like the ballad that was going to sort of like bring you back to, it was like it's the closest thing to a ballad, but it's still like pretty fast. It's still got like a breakdown at the end. And I was like, that's going to be on the B side, and Life's a Pill. We all knew had to be track 3 because track 3 was sort of like we saw that as like that's your hitter. Track 3 is like the song, and while it might not be my favorite, I think that Life's a Pill is the best Koyo song personally. That was a TJ idea, and I love that song. I think it's so cool. But like I think that song came out great. And but the missing part of the sequence was our friend Mike Dubin was listening through all of the demos with us, and he was there while we were doing pre-pro, and he was just filming and like taking photos, and like he was hanging out with us and everything, and he had this suggestion that sort of unlocked this really cool thing where he was like, Anthem should start the B side of the record. He's like, that should start the B side. And when he suggested that, I was like, well, Anthem goes into Sayonara, which goes into Message Like a Bomb. I was like, oh wait, now this is that can go. So it unlocked this sequence that, like, are either of you musicians?
No, just talked to a lot of them.
So, well, much better off like that, I think, personally. One of the like nerdy things that we sort of uncovered that no one in the band cares about and wasn't like too intentional, and I don't even care about it, just kind of happened, was the record does this sequence where the key signature of the songs goes the 2 songs in B. Okay. And then 3 songs in E, which like kind of work together. So that kind of works together, and that's the B B E E E. Flip to the B to the B side, and there's 3 songs in D, which is right down from E. Then there's a song in C sharp that connects on a chord in the last song in D, Message Like a Bomb. Yeah. And 2 songs in C, and then when the record returns, it starts in B. So it like climbs down the key signatures, and when we figured that out, I was like, that's the coolest thing ever, and everybody in the band was like, shut the fuck up, dude.
Okay, nerd.
And I was like, no, but that's dope, and they were like, yeah, it's cool, but like it doesn't matter, but I thought it was cool.
Yeah, that's cool as fuck.
That is.
It's like a little like nerdy thing that like nobody's ever like noticed or said anything about, but for me, when I hear it, it's like, that's cool. The keys just keep moving down,
Yeah, that is fucking awesome.
Thank you.
So would you be able to tell us where your headspace is at while you're creating this record?
So since it was such a long process, our headspace kind of like was all over the place. I feel like, and I've always like our singer Joey is like I've been saying, like, he's one of my best friends ever. He's like probably my best friend, and with that said, I am still like his biggest fan, and I am such a nerd when it comes to, I've read a lot of his lyrics over the years. I think he's an awesome lyricist, and I think that it was really cool to watch his lyrics grow and change while his headspace changed throughout the record, because we had written those songs. Some of those songs came from ideas we had put together a long time ago, and so to watch his sort of like thinking, his approach to certain things change, to watch his experience change was really cool. For me, the headspace was, at first, it was very just like optimistic and cool. Like when we first started writing, like when the first songs hit we had like a big whiteboard that I had at my old apartment that would like had like code names for each song, and we would just like
badass
organize them into like what we thought was like the best songs. And what the first songs that hit the whiteboard for the LP, like I was feeling optimistic and cool. I felt like determined. We all felt like very obsessed, I guess is the word I would use. It's like and then it definitely got worse because the pressure built up and I was hurt and I was in a wheelchair. So
Yeah.
and was, so much of my life had to just stop for a while.
Mhm.
So my headspace definitely got to like a pretty dark spot, not to drag the answer down, but it definitely got to a weird spot where I was just so out of it and I had so much going on and I was so uncomfortable every day. I was in so much pain. I couldn't walk, like
Yeah.
I couldn't like so many of the things that I would do to sort of like make my headspace better, I couldn't do. I couldn't go out with my friends. I couldn't go to the gym. I couldn't run. I couldn't do anything. I couldn't play sports. I like had to stay in one spot. So for me, it was a little tough. Excuse me. And I think for everybody else, I would say it was kind of the same. Where it sort of just like changed when the pressure picked up.
Mhm.
It turned into like more of like can we do this? I don't know, like it was definitely hard, but I think overall when it came down to like actually tracking and like putting stuff together, it became sort of like excited, like an anxious and excited. You know what I mean? It was
Yeah.
like, what's gonna happen? I mean, I'll never forget like the first time I listened through the record all the way through. I was like, what happens next? Like, are people, I love it, but are people gonna like it? Like, what do
Yeah.
we do? It was just sort of every day I was just thinking, like, how is this gonna go?
Mhm.
So it's weird. It's like I always joke around that I wouldn't wish writing and recording an LP on anyone. I wouldn't wish that on anybody, that it's really, really hard. And it takes
Yeah.
a lot out of you.
Yeah.
You learn a lot about yourself. You learn a lot about the people you work with. And I'm overall like the best experience to make a record that I'm proud of with my best friends is the best experience of my life.
Mhm.
And it's something I'm proud of and I'm grateful for every single day. But I learned a lot about it. And I think that going into LP2, whenever that happens, like we'll uh we'll be in a much different spot. We'll kind of know what we're getting ourselves into a little more.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. I'm glad
Right.
that, you guys were able to overcome the pressure once you were in the studio and got comfortable. Everybody was just kind of like, now the vibes are flowing. So that's
Yeah.
good.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. So this question should be super, super quick off the top of your head. I want you to describe this album for new listeners in 3 words, no more, no less.
Urgent,
Okay.
dope,
Damn right.
energy.
Yeah.
Hell yeah. Yeah.
I was gonna say something ridiculous, like the foods that we were eating or something while we were recording it, but I think that would be unnecessary.
Oh no, it's all good. We have some food questions coming up, so it's
Oh,
okay.
sick.
It's okay.
Awesome.
Yeah. But in the same vein as the last question, is there a certain feeling or emotion you want this album to evoke in your listeners?
Yeah, I think that like urgency, like
Yeah.
we sort of when we got to the drawing board of like we had a couple days where we just sat and listened to like iPhone demos and like like GarageBand demos of all of the music, like everything we had prepared for it, which was like 20 something ideas. And when we got to that point, we were like, there's a lot of we have the opportunity now to sort of pick how we want the record to feel. So that topic came up while we were that question came up while we were actually like writing and record before we even recorded the record.
Mhm.
And what we said was we really want the record to feel like, oh, these guys want it. These guys are
Yeah.
ready. These guys are urgent. And like we weren't like, oh, let's have a soft part where the record cools down and like the listener could relax. Like, no, we want you to feel
Mhm.
like our favorite records ever like are just like pedal to the floor, it's
Damn
just
right. Yeah.
feels so urgent. It feels like this band is here for it, like they want it right now. That's kind of the feeling we wanted to evoke. Like obviously the individual lyrical content for each song should evoke different emotions, but like Joey's a better person to explain that. When it comes to the actual music and like the overall feeling of the record, though, it's definitely we wanted urgency.
Yeah,
Fuck
absolutely.
yeah. Mhm.
So can you talk about any particularly challenging or standout moments from the creation of this album, positive or negative?
So from my perspective, literally it was learning how to walk again.
Yes.
It was that I would say like from a literal standpoint, it was learning how to walk while recording. But I think overall from the band's perspective, it was more so it was overcoming that like demoitis that bands get, where it was like we had to sort of understand that the songs are sometimes songs and parts are meant to do different things than like what our intuition told us initially. And somebody else's intuition is actually a better option. And it's hard to sort of take a step back, I think, sometimes. And when you're writing a song or putting a record together and saying, well, this is that I want to do this because this is how I wrote it. But this makes so much more sense, like we actually just left the studio and I had that same experience where I had written something a certain way and Joey was like, no, we have to do something else.
Yeah.
And I think it's a common thing that we're learning to overcome. And I think a positive that we took from it though was, that we can trust in each other and we can trust in our producer, John, to really like to take the reins sometimes and like turn our ideas into something bigger. I can trust, we can all trust each other. I can trust our drummer and bassist and Joey and TJ, like, and vice versa, to take something that like I can't really externalize and give them whatever little bits of the idea. And this goes, I think, universally for all of us, and we can all sort of work together, and in that environment we can all thrive and help each other out. That's I think a positive we all took from it.
That's awesome. Hell yeah.
Yeah. Wonderful. So for this question, I want you to picture you're on tour. You're at a gas station for a rest stop. You're going in. What is your snack of choice?
I'm a pretty boring snack person, if I'm being honest. So I would say my go-to is usually like yogurt, like a Greek yogurt, a bottle of water, or like a Pedialyte, or like some sort of electrolyte drink that doesn't really have sugar. Maybe if I'm feeling froggy, I'll have some peanuts or some like popcorn. But more often than not, it's like cheese, yogurt, and like any sort of like salami or pepperoni or something like that. Like I'm a very typical Long Island Italian person. That's what I want to snack on when we're driving in the van for long periods. I want a cup of black coffee. I want, a cold brew, and I want some meat and cheese. And that's really it.
That's fair enough.
Living the life.
Yeah.
It's not too bad. If it's a good gas station, I'm getting fruit.
Yeah.
I'm
Damn
totally
right.
getting fruit. But if it's like a shot gas station, it sucks, where it's like the fruit looks like it's been there for 10 days and like it's just sitting under the lamps. Like I'm not gonna eat that. But if it's like a Buc-ee's or something, then I'm going, pineapple, grapes, apple slices, I'm going fruit mode.
Yeah.
Damn right.
All right, hell yeah. And on the topic of food, if the band was a dish, what dish would the band be and why?
We would be we'd either be a pepperoni pizza, or we'd probably be a half pepperoni pie, half like I want to say like, damn, maybe like I'm trying to think of a way to incorporate. So we're all Italian, except and I'm Italian and Irish, and our bass player is 100% Greek. I'm trying to think of an Italian Greek combo. I think I know what we'd be. We would be a hero with chicken cutlet, fresh mozzarella, vodka sauce, and like garlic butter. That's what we would be. That's what I say that because there's a deli I go to when we're writing music here, or that I order from a lot. And like if we're all ordering, I know I'm gonna order 3 of that exact sandwich for us, and all of us would enjoy it. I don't even get it. The rest of the band does, that they all like that one. But yeah, it's basically a chicken parm with vodka sauce. That a chicken parm hero with vodka sauce, I think, is exactly what we would be.
Damn right.
Hell yeah.
It's fucking beautiful. So for these last couple questions, we're actually going to shift away from music, if that's okay with you.
Of course.
Great. We're actually gonna go straight to death row.
Boom.
So if you're on death row, what would your last meal be with a drink?
My last meal would be. Can it be like a big last meal?
Yeah.
Yeah, go for it.
Okay, so it's pepperoni pie from Lucali's
Okay.
in Carroll Gardens, and it's a salt beef bagel from Brick Lane Bagel in London, and uh, and my mom's chicken cutlets. Those are my favorite. And with a drink, it would have to be a a black cold brew with, well, it would be a Manhattan special,
Mhm.
or it would be a black cold brew with from like a really bougie coffee spot. One of the many that I could think of, like it would be somewhere crazy. It would be like, I have a list of like coffee shops that I really like across the country, across the world that I go to. It would be from
Yeah.
someplace in Japan. It would be Japanese cold brews are crazy. Yeah, it would be a really ridiculous meal. There'd be a lot going on.
All right.
Fuck
Hell
yeah. I mean, it's your last meal.
Yeah.
Yeah, why not? You know, I gotta go crazy. It's the last thing I'm gonna eat. I might as well enjoy it.
Hell
Damn
yeah.
right.
So if you could live in one fiction world for a week, where would you live?
It's not. I'm gonna count it as fictional. I would say, North Jersey, in The Sopranos.
Oh, yeah.
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 Obviously, it's not fictional. It's I could see New Jersey from my window, but I never go there. It sucks. So,
Exactly. Why not?
Yeah.
Why not?
yeah.
And I have the honor of asking the last question. Every single person we've spoken to has actually said it is the most important question. What is your favorite color?
Black.
So, if you had to pick like a color that counts as a color, what would it be?
I'm very stubborn. I want to just say black. But it's, I don't know. I'm not a very. I don't really. If I like had to pick,
Yeah.
it would be like a dark green, I guess, or something.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Fuck yeah. That's a great color.
But
Mhm.
what would yours be?
Mine's like fucking bright ass yellow. Like that duct tape yellow.
Yeah,
Mhm.
that's
with it.
what about yours, Shane?
I'm also a team black, but Glory claims that's not a color, so I have to say purple. I like
That's
purple.
crazy. I feel like
Well, it's the
It's like-
absence of color.
Exactly.
it's
See, he's learned. Mhm.
but it's like, yeah, you're right, but it's the best one, you
Yeah.
know?
We have this
No, that's
discussion a
fair.
lot because when you
Yeah.
interview alternative bands, they're all just, that's the default is
I
black.
was just about to say, I'm definitely not the first person to say that.
No,
Oh,
no.
no.
This
Far from
conversation
it.
happens multiple times a day.
Yeah, I can imagine, it's like,
Yeah.
I like, I'm one of those people where it's like, when I buy clothes, I'm like, I know I'll wear it if it's black,
Yep.
if it's not, though.
Yeah, today's
Oh,
like
no,
the
that's
rare
fair.
day that I'm wearing a maroon shirt because my mom went shopping with me when I got shirts and she was like, you should get some color. I'm like, fine. Red's
No,
okay.
Mom's right, but it's,
Yeah,
I'm very stubborn. I mean, you can't see, but I'm also wearing black pants and black socks and
The
black,
hat.
black hat, shirt, and my slides are black and white. And so that's just always how I am.
Yeah.
Fair enough.
Yeah, unless you're true to it.
So
It
as,
is a good question. It is a good question. I do like
Thank
that
you.
question.
good.
Yeah,
So as Glory said, that's all the questions I have today. Is there anything that you would like to plug?
Every Long Island hardcore band. I can't end every hardcore band from the rest of the world. We're when is this going to come out?
Soon, in the next couple of weeks.
So we'll probably still be on tour with One Step Closer, Anxious, and Prize Horse around the country. We're doing another full US at the end of the year with where we're opening for an awesome band. So I think that'll be dope. So yeah, I just plug those tours. Come see us on tour. It'll be a lot of fun. And that's really it.
Hell yeah.
Yeah,
All right.
right.
Well, thank you, Sal. It's been Harold from Koyo, and we have been the Good Noise Podcast.